I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Big political news up in Albany and what this could mean for the church.
As Mother Teresa reminds us, we're not called to be successful always, Matt, in politics. We're just called to be faithful.
Help from across the water. A benefit at Carnegie Hall to feed hungry children in Haiti.
We're going to go simply to help and just roll up our sleeve and work.
And a costume celebration that has nothing to do with Halloween. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Change is definitely coming to Albany. That was made official on Friday when Governor David Paterson announced he would not seek a full term.
That's true. Paterson, who is Catholic, has faced a series of setbacks, the most recent being allegations of interfering in a domestic violence case involving one of his staff members. Paterson's decision makes it all but certain that Attorney General Andrew Cuomo, who is also Catholic, will seek the Democratic nomination for the governor's office.
I had a chance to sit down and discuss all of this earlier today with Monsignor Kieran Harrington, the Vicar for Government Affairs and Public Policy for the Diocese of Brooklyn. Well, Monsignor Harrington, thank you so much for being here once again. We appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Well, Governor Paterson, of course, deciding not to seek election to what would have been his first full term as governor. How does his decision now impact Catholic Church relations with Albany?
Well, I think that it's not going to really change things dramatically for us. I mean, certainly his decision, we're going to continue to work with the governor for the rest of this legislative session. He's the governor until next year, so we'll continue to work with him. There is a lot of important work to deal with in terms of school funding and MTA funding. I think the question really of what about the governor's decision not to run is something that we all have to grapple with, though, is this sort of gotcha politics that is really driving not only Governor Paterson, but with Governor Spitzer before him, and AAC with Charlie Rangel. There seems to be a whole this 24-hour news cycle. The blog world is really driving a gotcha politics, which makes it very difficult to establish relationships, which are really the key to getting things done in politics.
Right, it's changed the world. I mean, the 24-hour news cycle first, and then the blogosphere came along, and really it's changed the way that people see their public officials.
It certainly has. I mean, you take a look at what's driving, you think about how irresponsible actually the New York Times was in this, that they leak out a story that they're going to be doing about the governor that involves the governor's aide and his relationship with this woman, which admittedly was wrong and terrible. But really, is this the kind of thing that should be bringing the wheels of government to a grinding halt? I find it really difficult. So there's a real responsibility on the part of our elected officials and a part of media for the gridlock we face in our government.
Right. Attorney General Andrew Cuomo has not announced his candidacy just yet, but signs are pointing that way. How do you think, if looking forward, if that becomes the case, if he announces his candidacy, the likelihood would be then, with any sort of, political knowledge, you would look at that as, well, he would be likely the next governor of the state of New York. How would the Catholic Church then approach him? Any differently than Governor Paterson?
Remember, there are still elections in November, and, Rick Lazio, who has announced his candidacy.
The official candidate.
Yeah, he's an official candidate. I do think, the fact is that certainly by what everyone says, Andrew Cuomo is overwhelmingly popular amongst a lot of people. Would it change in terms of how the church relates? No. I think that we're not aligned with a political party or a candidate. We espouse positions, oftentimes unpopular positions. I mean, New York State, we have a very, in some sense, we can have hostile legislatures and to certain positions that we would take. At the same time, we've got to kind of stand for what we believe to be the truth, because, as Mother Teresa reminds us, we're not called to be successful always, Matt, in politics. We're just called to be faithful.
Well, that being said, I mean, we've got Governor Paterson now, who is someone who is Catholic, who has come out in support of gay marriage in the state of New York, who has come out and been a supporter of abortion through his career. You've got Andrew Cuomo, the possible Democratic candidate there, who is also Catholic, who has also taken a more liberal stance on some issues as well. How does the church deal with people who are Catholic, who might not always espouse in their public lives what would be considered Catholic beliefs?
It's a real challenge. You know, and in fact, we're so far away from a place where a person's, and basically this really goes to John F. Kennedy's speech to the Houston Ministerial Convention, where basically he said, you know, that there is not going to be any pope or cardinal or any minister who should tell an elected official how they should vote or what they should believe and that sort of thing. You know, that essentially there is this divide, and that he kind of holds up. And the problem with that is look, the gospel has got to inform. It's got to inform who we are and the decisions we make. If it doesn't, then we're really not a believer. This is fundamental. So it does form my worldview. It forms how I come to a decision-making process. The scriptures have to for me. My religious faith has to. Otherwise, my religious faith is not real. You know what? It should do that as a politician, but it also should do that as a businessman. Just imagine if a businessman said, you know what? In the best interest of my business, I'm not going to be honest because my business will thrive if I am a little more deceptive.
Sure.
Fact is, we would always say that person, you know, what's motivating that person? That person's an unethical person. It's the same thing with elected officials. So how do we deal with them? I think that we've got to continually call them to account. That's key. First thing, the church should be calling them to account, and hopefully, second thing is we should be educating Catholics, encouraging them to engage in the political process and to bring their values into the political process. Key thing here, Matt, is people don't understand is if Catholics were engaged in the political process, it's not that Catholics are not engaged on these issues. What's basically happened is Catholics have disengaged from the political process. Part of our challenge is to say to them, you have a responsibility to be engaged in the political process, and as you do that, as you encourage them to be responsibly engaged in the political process, and they bring those values to bear, I think that's going to change politics for us in New York State.
All right, well, very good. Thank you so much, Monsignor Harrington, for joining us here once again.
It's always good
we
to be with
appreciate
you,
your
Matt.
time.
God bless you.
Thanks. Well, we certainly haven't heard the last of this story, and we'll stay on top of it for you. But stay tuned, there's much more Currents coming up.
When we return, we have all the day's headlines, including Chile shaken to its core in a massive earthquake this weekend. We'll have the latest.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up just a bit later, the celebration of Purim was this weekend. We'll tell you what it was all about.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, Pope Benedict prayed for victims of the Chile earthquake yesterday and said Catholic relief organizations will bring relief to the country. The pontiff said he is praying for the victims and he is spiritually close to those affected by the serious catastrophe. In the meantime, the Catholic Church in Chile is organizing a large effort to bring aid to the victims of the devastating earthquake that hit the country early Saturday morning. The magnitude 8.8 earthquake claimed the lives of more than 700 people and left 500,000 homes either destroyed or badly damaged. The earthquake was followed by dozens of aftershocks, some as great as 6.9 on the Richter scale, prompting some residents to sleep in the streets out of fear. Chile's president says the government is distributing aid and repairs are being made to the airport in Santiago. And President Obama says that the U.S. is standing by, ready to help. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be visiting the devastated nation tomorrow. Meantime, closer to home, a parish in Queens is reeling after someone broke into the church and stole 2 chalices worth a combined $10,000. The chalices were reportedly stolen late Thursday or early Friday from St. Helen's Church in Howard Beach. The pastor, Monsignor Al Lapinto, says someone had to break into the sacristy and a locked closet to find those chalices. Some cash was also taken from the church's poor box.
Pope Benedict says the international community should do everything possible to end religious violence in Iraq. After his Sunday Angelus, the Pope said he feels profound sadness after the recent killings of Christians in Mosul. He called on Iraq's government to make every effort to return security to the population and, in particular, to the most vulnerable religious minorities. Meantime, the European Union has reportedly formed an association to protect Christians in countries where they face persecution. Italy's foreign minister says the goal is for the group to come up with a manual to be distributed to European embassies around the world by the end of April. The manual would focus on the treatment of Christian religious minorities. The latest World Youth Day was nearly 2 years ago, and its host city is seeing a surge in vocations. A record number of men are headed for seminary in the Archdiocese of Sydney, Australia, and 6 men are set to be ordained there in June. That would be the largest number of men ordained in the Archdiocese since 1988. Reports say some observers credit the influence of the last World Youth Day, at least in part, for that increase. Sydney's seminary rector says credit also goes to past World Youth Day events and the Year for Priests. And finally, the nominees for the 53rd Annual New York Emmy Awards have been announced, and there will be a little friendly competition in the religious programming category. Deborah Goncher-Vinnick and her husband David have been nominated for a documentary that they produced. And you may remember Deborah from a few months ago here on Currents when we spoke with her about her latest documentary, A Place for All, which deals with accessibility to places of worship for people with disabilities. Also up for an Emmy this year, one of our very own shows here on the net, our own Patrick O'Connor, George Moran, and Chris Quinn have been nominated for their work on Mysteries of the Church. The new season of that show just began here on net, and you can see it Wednesdays at 9 and 11. And we wish everyone luck who's been nominated. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
Currents will be up there someday, too.
Someday soon, we hope.
We hope.
Absolutely. Well, stay with us. There's much more Currents coming up. Just ahead, some sweet relief for hungry children in Haiti. It's a benefit concert.
Welcome back. Well, it was 7 weeks ago tomorrow that the devastating earthquake rocked Haiti, killing hundreds of thousands and leaving countless more homeless. And the misery just never seems to stop.
That's right. And over the weekend, the island nation was hit by relentless rains that left the southwestern corner of the country flooded. Haiti's third largest city, La Caille, was inundated with 60 inches of rain, reportedly killing at least a dozen people.
Meantime, up here in New York, efforts to help raise money for quake relief do continue, though. Friday, as the city dug out from that massive snowstorm, there was a benefit at Carnegie Hall, organized by some people with a deep personal connection to Haiti. Take a look.
We decided last fall that we wanted to do a benefit concert for Haiti, and so we started planning it about 7 months ago. About an hour and a half before the earthquake, I approved the press release for this event, and I approved it and got on a train, and about an hour later I started getting phone calls saying there was an earthquake.
I was working, and my wife texted me, and she told me about it, and her concern was, is Elsie okay? She's our friend in Haiti, and I didn't realize the magnitude of it until I got home, turned on the news, and I saw the devastation, and it was pretty beyond what I thought about.
Elsie Larison began the feeding program in Port-au-Prince, Haiti about a decade ago. Prior to the earthquake, was feeding 650 kids twice a week. Her feeding program is entirely dependent on donations, and we really felt like this is a way that we could have an impact on these kids. And what has happened since the earthquake is, with the migration out of Port-au-Prince, instead of feeding 650 kids twice a week, she's feeding 400 kids 6 days a week. They're living in conditions that we really can't even imagine. She's sleeping right now in a tent with a lot of the kids on a tennis court outside, because the building structures of the remaining structures, I think people are concerned that either there will be aftershocks for the earthquake or that the structures aren't safe, so people are reluctant to sleep. Tonight was awesome. The crowd was fantastic. They weathered the snowstorm and they came out and supported what I think just turned out to be a beautiful event with a lot of really compassionate people.
I grew up pretty much here in the United States, because of Elsie Larison, the connection there, and the memories that I had of Haiti. Through this earthquake, I feel much closer to Haiti and its people. 10 years old, I haven't been back, and God be willing, I plan to go back. We're going to go simply to help Elsie Larison and just roll up our sleeve and work and help to feed the children and interact with them and speak with them and see how they're doing.
Well, you may remember Paige Strackman and her family. She has long been involved in trying to help raise money to help Haiti. And last year, we profiled the work that she's doing. Absolutely. You can find out more about that and all of her efforts just by visiting our blog. Go to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave. Meantime, stay with us. There's much more Currents straight ahead.
When we return, it's a celebration of Purim. We'll tell you what it's all about.
Jewish holidays, I think, are very interesting in that they cover the gamut of emotions, of history, of belief.
Well, finally tonight, if you saw a lot of people in your neighborhood this weekend in costume, you might have been like me and been just a little bit confused. I saw a lot of the pink wigs and different color hair and all kinds of costumes and hats and stuff. But no, it's not Mardi Gras. You know, Halloween was several months ago.
Sure.
So what was going on?
That's where we come in. We're going to try to tell you. It was the Jewish festival of Purim. And if you don't know what that is or what its significance might be, don't worry. We went out to find some answers.
We celebrate this holiday called Purim, which begins on the night of the 14th of Adar, the Hebrew month of Adar, and it goes through to the next night also. Purim celebrates a sort of historic event. The character Haman, who was part of the Persian Empire under the king Artaxerxes, known in Hebrew as Ahasuerus, decided he wanted to kill all the Jews. And the story goes that Esther saved the Jews. She was married to King Ahasuerus, and she told the king that this man wants to kill me. Ahasuerus said, "Who is this man?" She said, "Haman is this man." And he ordered that Haman be killed instead. What we celebrate on this day is the idea that we can overcome human indignity and human evil. That human evil is not okay. We don't ever say that it's okay, and we don't try to understand it. We try to put it down and do away with it so that evil can't come to good people. Jewish holidays, I think, are very interesting in that they cover the gamut of emotions, of history, of belief. And to have all of them celebrated in the same way would take away, I think, from the variety of experiences that we have in life. We can say to ourselves, you know, this was very serious, but we have to be happy about this. We survived and we're still here and we have our people and we get to enjoy and we sing and we wear costumes and the children are coming up and they put on these plays and we read from the Megillah, the book, the scroll that describes this whole story. One of the things about the costumes and the masks that we wear reminds us, one of the symbolisms of that is that there's a concept in Judaism which talks about hester panim, that God's face is sometimes hidden from us. And so we wear masks sometimes to show that hiddenness. And we have a good time. It was a terrible confusion in that time. Who's going to win? What's going on here? Why are we being persecuted? Why is this happening? And that confusion was something that we tried to make fun of in a way. It's good to vanquish evil and to know that good can triumph. It's good. And so we celebrate it in that way on this one day, remembering that this has happened and it'll happen again, and we will overcome it again. One of the interesting things about the scroll of the Megillah that has this entire story is that the name of God is not mentioned once in there. The rest of the Bible, obviously you find God in there. God's not mentioned in there. And one of the things that we learn from this, which is a very important lesson for people who have faith or are looking for faith or are struggling with their faith, is that we don't always see God. But God is there. And that's something that we pay attention to on Purim.
So much fun for the kids.
I know. As Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that.
It's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, me, being from the South, I see a lot of traditions now that I had no idea even existed. This is another one of them. I mean, I really was walking around my neighborhood. I live on the Upper West Side. I was walking around my neighborhood on the weekend and saw these people in costume, and I was like, what in the world is going on? I was like, have they checked their calendars? Because there's not a thing going on that I know of. But there was. It was this big thing. And now I know, and I'm all the better for it.
That's right. And I think one of the things is it's a timeless tale, right? Vanquishing of evil, good will reign. And you know those noisemakers that they actually use those during the festival as well? Those are kind of fun. That kind of swing around. Yeah. And I don't know, it just seems like it's a great opportunity for everybody of all ages to understand a real holiday and also just have fun at this festival.
Yeah, and get that message of, good overcoming evil, and it's a great thing, and I'm glad that I got to learn about it. Some
people, the light in the dark. Exactly. Go walk toward the light.
That's it.
All right. Well, that is it, I should say, for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, another country rocked by a massive earthquake. We'll have the latest on the crisis that is now facing Chile. Meantime, remember, you don't even need a TV to watch us. We are always online at currentsny.net.
And you can also follow us on Twitter. You can become our fan on Facebook as well. We're all over the place on the internet. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.